Yes, sir. Good morning, Colin. Yes, sir. Let's see. Good morning, Brantley. Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Samayon.
I'm capable.
Yeah. Good morning, Max.
I'm capable.
Yeah. Good morning, Hudson. Okay. Yes, sir. Good morning, Jackson. Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Hey, Brandon, how's your day been? I got this.
Is that cheap about that?
Yeah. What number are you?
Sorry.
20.
Yeah, you are.
You gonna get one under the see if there's one back there that's right open. Yeah. Friday.
Oh, wow. Hey. How was your week?
Good, I brought you food.
Hey, you was the first one to pay. I love that. But we're going to tell you tomorrow. She'll give it back to us. So this morning, I come work for the rest of the day. Hey, we blasted on YouTube.
So
It is so good. That bitch died from meth when we first went out. It's like, it's actually like, oh, you know what it is? She was with this nigga whole No, I wasn't here. The whole Nobody's going to work. You can't smoke. You said it's not made out. I don't know. It's left on meat.
oh, I'll get 3.
Oh, you're fine today.
I never bring money for you.
Yeah, because you can't look at I can look at it. Oh, that's very well.
I don't even eat up till 10.
I am.
There you go.
I don't either.
That's what they like it.
Have we logged into our calculators? Answer the bell ringer. Come on, there's got to be something that we know. Good morning, AJ. Yes, sir. Good morning, Destiny. You don't have to make it sound so depressing. Good morning, Gabby.
Will you go ahead and give me a calculator? I gotta walk back and put another calculator.
Good morning, Emma.
I'm capable.
There you go.
Hey, Hudson, did you get a haircut?
Good morning, Salida.
We'll try it.
Yeah. Good morning, Alasia. Yeah, you are. I mean, there's got to be something more, hopefully, that you remember anything about a linear function.
Mr. Kitty, there's this big clock on my
I mean, you know, that would make some sense, right?
I think linear functions have to do with
Hey, there's a clock. Hey,
It's like how we need to reset it. Yeah, probably just need to reset it. Go grab it. All right, we're going to start going in just a minute.
Stand for the pledge.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may now be seated. Pledge your ignition, and don't forget to come out and walk tonight at 7 to support your team and eat some good chicken. The first class club game is
Probably start using it tomorrow, but we bake it too.
Look for comments just around the school side. There will be snacks. The flight table classes Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Our first game will be Thursday, September 15th at home versus Northridge at 5:30. All no students games. Fellowship of Christian students will meet in room 218 every Thursday morning at 7:40. Everyone is welcome. Students in grades 9 through 12 that are interested in taking PSAT. The deadline to register is September 14th. Pick up the registration form in the office. PSAT will be given at Milford on October 12th. Cost is $1 and is not required.
Come on, lady, get that phone out.
Credit for members will go to office this Wednesday, September 7th, after school in the library.
It's an emergency basis.
Sophomore varsity shirts are on sale.
an emergency to learn.
Under my laptop, so she's off.
SWAT this unit program will have their first meeting next Friday from 3:30 to 4:30.
And good morning, juniors. Today you will be coming to the theater for your enrichment. We will be launching the ACT prep program for you, and you need to attend so that you get lots of key information. This Thursday, you will be taking the fall practice test, and that will be in your seats at 8 a.m., and we will complete that first test. That's for juniors ACT. Be looking for key email. Your information session today will help us fill in all the questions you have. And be one pack.
Okay, really quickly, before I forget, we are starting a new unit, so it is time for new groups. New groups.
I forgot about all your
So, I have everyone's name.
And
Wait, which
one
one?
for the freshmen. The deadline for turning in your
Alright,
t-shirt
so
form.
everyone's name is in this random team generator. When I hit rerun, it's going to generate new teams, move to the group that goes with your team. Alright, there we go. So, group 1, Kaya, JC, Owen, and Emma up here to start. Group 2, Brantley, Jackson, Salita, Malvortier. Group 3, Samayon, AJ, Destiny, and Alasia. Group 4, Colin, Zaria, Hudson, and Max. Group 5, Gabby, Devlin, Leah, and Keanthony. Group 6, which you can sit at group 7 if you want, is Tori, Madison, and Peyton. Your sack. Is it here or just Hillcrest in general? Well, let's run that round upside down. Where's your calculator? Alright.
That's not fair.
There it is, yeah.
I think you should redo it.
Yeah.
No. As fair as can be.
That's not fair.
What's not fair?
She gets a ion.
Oh no. They get you, so it's fair, right? Wow! Quick point, because this is a good point here. Does anyone know for sure how these groups are fair? It's random, right? I didn't choose this. It's random. It is as fair as can be. And I will tell you this, I do this intentionally because I know that every single one of you, whether you want to believe me or not yet, are capable. And so it doesn't matter who I put in which groups. You're all capable of being successful, pushing on each other. But you have strong people around you to learn and grow as well. So, quick recap, right? So what we are getting into, I'll go ahead and tell you, linear, exponential, quadratic functions. We're not going to spend nearly as much time on linear and exponential functions as we are on quadratic functions. And so we're going to introduce linear functions today and introduce quadratic functions today, or linear, exponential, and quadratic, just introducing them. I am going to be out early next week because I have to go down to Montgomery to do some review stuff for test items for the state, so I'll be working on that. Miss Estel will be here on Monday when I'm out. On Tuesday, it'll be a normal sub, but you'll be working on what's called Mathia, the online portion of our curriculum. And so you'll get all the support you need with that. It helps you figure out where you're doing right and wrong. So the majority of linear and exponential will take place then, okay? But we are going to introduce today, and you're going to get notes, right, from what we do today. Please hear me very clearly on this, because I noticed this on our homework, and I noticed this when talking with students during tutoring. These notes are not to just put in your notebook. These are notes so that you have something to study from. Key ideas about what does it mean to be linear and exponential, what are the different equations that are possible, things like that. All right, so let's look to see if there's anything up here that we might want to remember. So I see a lot of lines, right? Like if you're talking about a linear function, the first 4 letters do give away a key idea about linear functions. What is it? A line, right? So plotting points. Straight lines, input is X, output is Y. That's a good thing to remember. Deal with numbers. I do want to ask, because this is a slightly surprising detail that it seems like we might have forgotten. Does anyone know or remember an equation of any equation of a line?
Slope.
Okay, so slope wouldn't be an equation, but is slope important in lines?
Yes.
Yes. What do we mean by slope?
Y equals the maximum speed.
So slope is involved in that equation, but that's not slope.
Doesn't that just find the
Rise
angle
over
of the
run?
line or something like that?
Okay, I'm going to come back to what Madison said and say, would you say
The
this?
angle of the line or something like that?
It does tell you how steep the line is, right? The slope of a hill is how steep the hill is. But Madison, say that one more time.
Rise over run.
Okay, so I don't want you to think rise over run, rise divided by run. Okay, that's one way to say it. What's the symbol for slope? What?
No.
What's mathematical? Over or divided by? I'm trying to help you build good mathematical understanding. Because here's the thing. Instead of getting all when we get to exponential functions, if you don't think it is divided by, it's going to hurt you. When we get to exponential functions, if you're not consistently thinking about that fraction bar's division, it's going to hurt you. That's why I ask you to always think about division there. Anybody remember the slope or the symbol for slope?
Okay.
Not an S.
Ain't it like?
Say it again. Yeah. Yeah. Remember, what was the equation you said earlier, Emma?
Oh, yeah.
Y equals mx plus b. Hey, what's that M there? Slope. Oh, okay. That's it. There's other things about that equation we need to learn and remember. There's other equations that we need to learn and remember. And we also need to understand what makes a linear function linear. Does anyone remember what makes it linear other than just a line on a graph?
Its angle, like, isn't it shaped like this?
Yeah, so, and that's going back to the idea of on a graph we're looking at a line. But I want to point this out. You're going to want to need this information, you're going to need this information today. When we talk about lines, and we talk about functions in general, are the only ways to represent a line in a graph like this. How else can we represent a linear function like that?
Can't it be like a little thing, you know what I'm saying? Like a little bend?
Well, so a bend like that, you're talking about this function. Would that be a linear function?
No.
It's not a line, right? Okay, good point. It's going to come up later today, actually. But what my question is there another way to represent a linear function?
Oh yeah, straight line?
Right.
That's still a line.
Up and down.
Like writing it down rather than like showing the point itself.
Maybe, but y'all are still, and so I'm not quite clear on what you're saying, Peyton, but what my point really is this. Is the only way to see a line in a graph.
No.
I mean, what kind of function would this be? Anybody? This type of function?
Is that a linear function?
That's the equation of a line. See how it's got the slope there? Kind of defines a line. So are graphs the only way to define lines? No. You can use equations and expressions. So let me make this note here. All right. So these kind of expressions are called algebraic, meaning that we are dealing with combinations of variables and numbers. So these are algebraic expressions. You don't need to write this down because it's going to come back up later. But that's a mathematical representation. It's a way to represent mathematical ideas. Any guess what we would call this mathematical representation?
Graphical.
Yeah, it's a graphical representation. It's a graph. Mathematicians are not original. The last one, actually there's two more, but the last one I'm going to point out right here because this is going to be helpful to you. Does anyone remember another way to represent mathematical ideas? You never seen numbers organized? Okay, points, but how would I organize those points? We've already got lines, we've already got graphs.
With parentheses and commas.
The table.
Say that again.
A table.
Tables. Can't you put things in tables? Yes? And here's the thing, and I'm going to come back to it in a second. You want to pay attention. Once we put it in a table, we would call it a tabular representation. You can call it either a table or a tabular representation. You will want to pay attention to tabular representations, right? The T chart is what some people have called it. It's called a table though. Helps you organize your inputs and your outputs, okay? So we're going to come back to this in a second. I'm going to skip the other bell ringer question I had because we need to get moving. I'm going to talk about something else more important. So here's our agenda for today. Quickly, we're going to talk about what is math. Quick note about math literacy. The stuff that y'all did with normal distributions is what I'm going to count for math literacy. I may do one more small assignment next week to deal with bar charts and pie charts, but that's going to be our math literacy, right? Math literacy is learning how to read graphs, talk about the measures of center, the standard deviation. I think we did that a good bit, right? So I'm going to use what y'all have already done to do math literacy. We're going to have a quick active collaboration reminder, especially because y'all are in new groups. And so we need a reminder of how it's going to operate. I know I was talking with someone this morning and was like, I just got used to my group. I know, but we got to learn how to work with people. And you might find that you work with this group even better right away and you get more comfortable with it. Lesson 1's called the Dream Job Salary Task. It's to introduce linear and exponential functions. And then we're going to have the second lesson hopefully start today called the Gold Rush Task, which is to introduce quadratic functions. Please hear me very clearly on this. This is an exploratory set of tasks. This is not to master these mathematical ideas. Today is to go into the basics of what does this thing mean. And we're going to take notes about some of those core things that you can come back to throughout the unit so that you have things to rely upon. So we can get more excited about it, Elijah. Woo! There's a slight smile. I like it. All right. So what is math? We talked about this early in the year. I got away from it because we focused on statistics. But what is math?
A language.
Okay, I see it as a language too. A language for what?
Patterns and relationships.
For the study of patterns and relationships, right? So mathematics is a language. It's how we describe the patterns and relationships that we see. And I want to point this out. Which of these mathematical representations do you think is going to be easiest to notice a pattern? So I'm going to go with the table. Okay, y equals mx plus b, that's great for putting into a calculator to get a graph. That's great for finding values way into the future because I can just plug in values for x once I know my m and my b. But the real thing is, in order to get to most of this, those tables are going to be instrumental. Pay attention to it. If we're really going to focus on math as the study of patterns and relationships, then we need to be thinking about tables. They will help significantly. And so the three things, right, especially during these exploratory tasks, what do mathematicians do first?
Recognize.
Close. That is true, but that's just not the word that I used. First, they got to notice. That's what we're doing today. We're going to notice patterns and relationships, right, Salita? Okay, so then we're going to describe them, right? So you got to notice them, think about them, and then you start describing them, putting pencil to paper, talking about it with your peers, things like that, and then we're going to learn how to generalize. That's where our notes come in and things like that. All right, so don't forget active collaboration. Please remember, right, your active collaboration directly affects your grade. First off, because you do get an active collaboration score every single day, but also active collaboration affects your grade because those who talk the most learn the most. The person who asks the most questions will get their questions answered, whether that's in small group or during whole class discussion. And so the more that you talk, the better you're going to learn. I can't answer your questions that are never asked. And I'm here to help you be the most successful that you can be. If you're looking at zeros, ones, or twos, and this isn't very true for many of us, it really means that you are off task to various levels. And so I've defined it in here. Remember, you have the active collaboration rubric as well. But if you are off task or you're distracting others, that's when you're going to look at zeros, ones, and twos. The bare minimum that you want is a 3. Right? A 3, you're completing assignments, but you may make little to no attempt to understand how others are thinking or engage with peers about their thought process. Whole class discussion. You only have to do one of the following things. Take notes, actively share thoughts, or ask questions. So you can earn a 3 without doing much of what? Talking. You can get a 3. You earn a 3 every single day, you're looking at 75%. But you've got to talk to earn higher than a 3. I'm trying to give you clear expectations for what to do. 1, because it's going to affect your grade, but 2, and more importantly, these are the things that are in the higher levels of the rubric significantly will improve your understanding and your growth with these ideas. Yes, Madison?
If we get a new group every year, I mean, we gotta be with, like, everybody in here, like, at some point.
I don't know, it'll be random, I don't choose it. It would make sense, but it's not guaranteed. Okay?
Why should we?
So we gotta learn how to work with everybody. Alright, please note, and this is where some of us are getting killed. I think overall, almost everyone is doing pretty well in small groups. Some small groups are doing better than others last unit, but you cannot get too engaged where you're sharing your insights and thoughts about presented problems, listening to and considering others' thoughts and perspectives, asking questions of others' thinking to push for better understanding. You can't get to that level 4 without being part of the whole class discussion. Remember, in your small groups, you're talking ideas out. It's not on you to share just your ideas. It's on you to share the ideas from your small group. Talk it out. Share your ideas. When things become confusing, ask a question right then and there. Like, even if you haven't been able to fully form your question yet, don't just say, I don't get any of it, because then I'll start asking questions, and then you'll be like, well, I mean, I got that part. So literally, it was only the last 2 steps that got you confused. Or something like that, right? So just tell me as soon as you have a question, and don't say, I don't get any of it. Say, I could track you here, here, and here, but I'm confused at what this means. I'm confused why you did blank. Let me know. I can't read your mind, and there's 23 of y'all in this class. But I want every single one of you to realize how capable you are of being successful. So don't forget, 4.5, that means that legitimately you're actually sharing thoughts and discoveries. You're asking questions both in general and of others' ideas, and taking notes, okay? So don't forget, after students share, I don't do it perfectly every time, but has anyone noticed what my most common response is after students share an idea?
Does anyone want to push back or add on?
Yeah. Does anyone want to push back or add on? I'm opening it up for you to add on to your thoughts or the thoughts of your group, giving everybody a chance to get involved in the conversation. I can't force you to do it, but I am going to give you those opportunities. Get involved in that conversation. And it's a very polite way of saying, hey, I disagree, but here's why. If you're going to push back or add on to someone else's response, do you know what you legitimately have to do before you can push back or add on to? You have to listen to them and you have to think, right? That's part of the point of this. In order to actively collaborate during a whole class discussion, you have to be engaging your brain. And if you're engaging your brain, you know what's going to happen?
You're going to learn.
You're going to learn. That's it. Right? Even if you're not saying things out loud, if you're at least engaging your brain, you will learn. But the only way that I know you're engaging your brain is by you talking things out. Okay? I love the questions. I love mistakes. I love all of it. But I need you to engage and make sense out of things. Okay? So, earn those higher scores, the 4s, the 4.5s, and the 5s. Notice again, to be a 5, you have to be a leader within your group. And I will say this, I've had whole groups earn 5s, because to be a leader doesn't mean you're the only one who's doing something. What it means to be a leader is that you are actively trying to make sure that everyone in your group is engaged in the conversation, that you are making sure that if you notice someone isn't talking as much, hey, what are your thoughts on blank? Or even if everyone is talking, just making sure that everyone is clear on what's happening, that everyone has their questions answered. You got to be a leader, and whole groups can earn 5s if you're consistently trying to make sure everyone's engaged. These are the expectations, because these are the things that I know will help you grow and learn the most. Okay? So, here's the objectives. These are things you want to pay attention to, because these are the things we need to discover. First thing first, I can differentiate the rates of change for linear and exponential functions. 2, I understand how linear and exponential functions appear in tabular, graphical, and algebraic representations, and then I can write equations for linear and exponential functions. These 2 right here you need to have down by the end of this lesson. You need to know the rate of change that for linear and exponential functions, because that's the thing that most of us no one talked about, but the rate of change is what defines every type of function. So you need to be looking for that rate of change. Anyone know which mathematical representation is going to make it easiest to find?
Rise divided by run.
So the rise divided by run might be important, but I'm talking about linear and exponential, right? So there might be something with a ratio, but listen to my question again. I said, which representation might be easiest? Maybe, but I would probably look at my tables. It's just my suggestion. You can find patterns really easily in tables. Rise divided by run slope, we've learned that heavily. It is good on a graph, but we miss what that actually means a lot of times on a graph, so keep that in mind. Writing equations, we're just going to introduce this today. So here's the context. Kilo was offered a 30-day contract to work at his dream job. By the way, you should have this on your desk. Each one of you should get one of those sheets that's on your desk. The dream job salary is the one we are starting with. This is the one that's all about linear, exponential, and quadratic. Did you accidentally take extras?
That's like the whole thing.
The whole thing? Does anyone not have a copy of this?
It's so crazy here.
Okay. Fair. So I should have been more clear about this earlier. Yes? Hold on. Hey, Anthony, someone's trying to talk. What? I mean, one, I like Kilo a lot. Two, that is my wife's favorite character. Yes, Tori.
We're not going over our text.
Right.
So how about we should?
Not today.
Oh, okay.
Well, and I will give it back, but probably not. If you want to come in and ask questions about it, you can, but like...
Are they graded?
Did we all pass?
No.
Oh. Yeah, because I didn't see it in the grade book.
Yeah, no, I haven't graded those yet. I'm working on it, but like, I also have to plan a whole new unit and all these other things. Okay? So, Kilo is offered a 30-day contract to work at his dream job. The owner runs his business unusually, however, and the payment options are non-traditional. He offers Kilo the following two payment options for his 30-day contract. Option one, $60,000 a day. That's a lot of money, man. I'd take that. But option two, he gets a signing bonus of a penny, and if he works 1 day, he gets another penny. He has a total of 2 pennies. If he works 2 days, he gets 2 more pennies, total of 4. If he works 3 days, he gets 4 more pennies. And so the question is, how many total now? Continue that pattern, right, of getting those number of pennies going, all right? And let's figure out which payment option he should take. Support your decision using at least 2 representations for each option and explain why these representations are useful in their own ways. So what are the representation options? Algebraic, graphical, and tabular. And I will point this out. Remember, this is only an algebraic representation for a line. There's more than one equation of a line, but 2 that may not help you with the exponential function. It may. But exponential and linear definitely have their differences. If you finish number 1, move on to number 2. If you finish number 2 before we have come back together as a whole class, work on number 3. I will make this note. Show your work, show your ideas on this paper, but you can also use the calculators to make graphs and to make tables. Does anyone know how to make a table on these calculators? Hold on 1 second. Let's do this. Because I actually have... I'm going to send out a document. Okay. So, here, it's already here. So, you should be getting a file right now. I think. Did anybody get the file?
I got it.
I did.
Okay, so go to browse. If it didn't pop up, go to browse.
They're actually all my
What do you need? You got it.
Uh-huh. Nope. Okay. That's weird. All right, so up here really quickly. All right, two things I want to point out. If you have this open, we're not going to actually open it, but hit Control and then Dock as if you're going to add a page. So Control and then Dock. That's going to allow you to add a page. What option do you see there that would be the same as this that could make a table? Listen spreadsheets. So if you're ever making a table on your own, you can go to Listen Spreadsheets. Okay? And I'll show you how to use this more in your small groups. But go ahead and get to work in your small groups. Please note, I'm not just asking you to make a guess which option is better. There is a definitive answer which option is better, but you need the evidence, right? So you're going to make a claim. Make sure you have evidence based on mathematical representations. What are your questions before we get started? All right, let's figure out which option's best.
No, she literally learned the whole thing.
Yep.
She literally learned the entire thing. Well, 2 days, like but still, learning it in a week the entire thing.
What was the question? Well, I'm just telling you, you can use this calculator. You might want to write things down first, and then I can show you how to use the calculator visually. Because like just putting a calculator in hand doesn't make things better. Like, what's our strategy? What's our approach to figure out which option is better? Then stand up, walk around the living room, come back. I'm not kidding. Wake up. Alright. I'm going to come back and check on you in just a minute. I need y'all working, making sense out of this problem. So a total of, okay. So I will point this out, some of us are already following this set of instructions. What's a more efficient way to draw that visualization? Look around.
Yeah.
What's that? Now, I do want to point this out though, because this is going to help you not lose an important detail. Is there a day zero in making the money? I mean, look again at Kilo as option 2. Before he even works a single day, how much money does he have? Okay. Does that make sense? And so in a similar way, even with the 60,000, day 0, how much money has he made? Nothing. So it'd be 0, right? So you can start at day 0, and oftentimes you'll want to do, we'll talk about why later. The other thing I'll point out is this. You're looking at paying dollars there, right? But what are y'all doing for options? Are you talking about dollars? You're talking about pennies. Okay, when you compare the two, what should you probably do? You need them either both in pennies or in dollars.
I'm wondering if we do like.
Okay, but does that make sense to the idea of like we want to make sure that we have the same units so that we can directly compare? That's answer your question. I just said like so like you were doing pennies, right? But option 1 is very clearly in dollars.
That's all you gotta do.
It's harder to compare pennies to dollars. You want to compare dollars to pennies. So instead of doing pennies. Okay, then stop using the calculator, pick up a pencil and write it down first. And I'll show you how to use the calculator later. So just instead of 1 penny, use 0.01 cents. Instead of writing down 2 pennies, 0.02 cents. Okay? Don't forget, remember, individual variables, just like here, the variable section. Make sure you're looking for that rate of change. So there we go, we got probably. Unless you can find a pattern that can simplify things. I will also say that I can, and that's fine, yeah, I can also show you how to use the calculator to get to 30 days pretty quickly. Right? But again, maybe find that pattern first. Well, each day is increasing by 1, but what's happening to the money?
That's really how it
That's double.
Yep. I think it should be like 42.
You might want to write some things down. 60,000.
No.
And don't forget to think about it as a mathematical term, increasing what operation would it be. So you're repeatedly adding 60,000 every day?
That makes sense. This is literally just like every 5 days.
Maybe talk about it as your group, but write some ideas down first. Second off, I will say this. If you leave out day 0, it will make your life harder.
Yeah.
But also an option 2, day 0, he starts off with how much?
But we're working day 3. For some reason, it feels like day 2.
Not day 0.
Day 3 gets 3.
Remember, he gets a signing bonus of what? A penny with 1 penny. So to be able to directly compare them, we may want to start with day 0 on both. So get it started with paper and pencil. I'll show you stuff in a second. Don't you dare to do that. Oh my gosh, it must be so bad. It's not. It's not. I don't know. Then tell her to talk to me. It's not bad.
Parents expecting a letter grade is dumb in general because everyone learns to draw now.
And an A means that you have excellently mastered everything. A B means that you have a strong understanding of what's happening. A B is a good thing then.
C is actually average.
See, it's not good. I don't got no clue.
Stop. I asked you to learn something. Okay? So, y'all made some mathematical representations. They'd be closer to algebraic. Could you convert that maybe to an algebraic expression with variables there? And don't forget to create other representations as well. Yeah. Yeah. Because, and I will say, I would check your option 2. Actually, I would check small detail in options 1 and 2 again. Remember, it's only 30 days, right?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was thinking 31.
You put 30.
I was thinking 31, but you had to get.
What is that number? 64. Got it.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I want to point out really carefully. 1, make sure you always label your tables. 2, that's dollars, right?
My one piece.
Yeah. Is that dollars? What is that? Okay, so do we want to compare dollars to pennies? No? What would we want to compare? Pennies to pennies or dollars to dollars? And you figure out which penny you go. Well, I want you to think about it. Like if you're looking at option 1, right? What would be changing and what would stay exactly the same every single
That's
day?
not how you're supposed to make it.
How much are you making every day? Okay, so on day 27, is it 60,000 times 30?
If you got that, you can draw.
So it'd be 60,000 times. Okay, if it was day 13, it would be that way. So I see something changing there. Well, yes, but think about what you just, when it was day 27, you said times 27. When you said it was day 13, you said times 13, right? So think about what's changing, because that would be where a variable is. Yes? You'll start to notice some things. No.
That was so bad.
180 was right. It was 2. Yeah. So, quick question. How did you get to 7, 11, and 16?
These taste like honey buns, but like it's just a little.
Oh, well, what I did was I added how many words?
You're not touching my food.
3, 7, So you add that to the
I love them. Oh my God.
you get that many pennies.
I got you. So, missing what? So is it doubling everything?
That's what I was thinking.
I will say, is it doubling everything? Look at option 2. He has a penny, he gets another penny for a total of 2 pennies. That double. And then the next day he gets 2 more pennies for a total of. Well, no. Day 1 he's up to 2 pennies. Day 2 he got 2 more pennies, so that doubled to get 4 pennies. Day 3 he got 4 more pennies, right? So how many pennies does he have now? 8. Right.
I can't bring them up.
So how do you notice, because this is what you missed. If he works 3 days, he gets 4 more pennies. So to go from 4, he goes to 8.
Yes, I have a lot. I have a lot. I think I have pepperoni. If I don't have pepperoni, are you on the way? Really?
Okay.
Hey, I like the numbers and I like
For which one? The pennies. Be careful, it looks like you're putting pennies on the end of the reader. But what are the 2 variables? The amount of money and the day, right? So do the number of pennies affect the day, or do the number of days affect the day? Right, based on how much you work, that's how many pennies you use, right? So make sure you have your independent. Thank you, thank you. Quick point of order as you're working through this. Don't forget, because some of y'all are just working without remembering the point. The first objective was to identify the what? So we want to find pattern. So specifically, you should be looking for a rate of change. Because if you can identify what rate of change is happening, that's going to make creating an equation and a graph much easier. Okay? It looks like most of us have done tables, and so in a second I am actually going to show you how to create the table on the calculator efficiently, but continue to work until that moment. The last thing I'll say is this: if you're dealing with dollars in option 1 and you're dealing with pennies in option 2, can you easily compare dollars to pennies?
Yes.
You want to compare dollars to dollars or pennies to pennies. You need to make sure they're in the same units, right? So let's get to work on finishing up those tables. If you haven't started on a table, let's learn how to do that. So don't raise it, right? So what's this? 10? 1. So erase, 1 cent. Got it. Erase that because that's going to make your life harder. What would 1 cent be as dollars?
0. In pennies, and you have dollars.
That'd be 10 pennies. 0.01, right? 2 pennies would be 0.02, right? So convert your pennies to dollars. Okay?
I'm saying that's most things are represented by these things. The kilo version and the city version.
Did you skip the first part of that, Tim? You just started there? Okay. So y'all have different ideas for option 2. Let's make sure we're talking through that together.
No, I'm saying that it's not relatable.
I'll help after that, but make sure you're talking through it, okay? And also, I will say this: if you skip day 0, it's going to make your life harder later on. So I would make sure I include day 0 for both options. So maybe create a separate table off to the side instead of rewriting that. But talk through it. Come back to it in a minute.
I mean, not this.
You are always
Right? It'd be nice if there was a faster way to put it. Has anybody noticed a pattern that could make it faster? It's just doubling, right? Okay. So how many times is it going to double 30 times? Is there a way to maybe write that as an equation or just write a numerical expression like that?
And then multiply out with
There's got to be a starting way. Right? 0.01. And then what are you doing to that? So how can we show that we're doubling it? See if you can write something that could make things easier. Yes. Please help. What's up?
Can we hear what Peyton's
I was saying that we multiply what you originally got, which is
You're doing 31.
by 2 for 30 days. Which that's what the first one is, and it ended up being like 40.
But instead of crossing through that, why didn't you just change the 31 to 30?
I could have, but it didn't.
Okay. But what do you think about the idea that it's just doubling it?
Why are you looking? I mean, it is doubling.
That's what I was
It's doubling. It's 2,200,000.
But you're going to need to rewrite that 0.02 times to the 30. That's not going to work.
It's not a whole lot.
Well, hold on a second. Let me ask this question. What's the value? Listen, but that's my point. That's not what you want. What is he starting with in option 2?
Okay, starting with 1 penny.
So 0.01, right? What's he doing to that 1 penny?
Doubling it every day.
So then how are you going to show that it's doubling every day for 30 days?
Oh, you're going to make repeats.
It's not just a square. Because how many times is it doubling? Not just a lot. How many times? 30 days, right? We go with the idea that it's doubling for 30 days? Oh. Would an exponent show that idea of repeatedly multiplying?
See, that's.
Hey, what type of functions are we studying? Linear and... What's your question?
I was
Something like that. You're getting close. You need to check your table for option 1 though. Day 0, how much has he made?
literally got you.
Nothing. Day 0. Well, you still want day 0 there. Just next to day 0, you need $0.
So we need to multiply.
Okay.
So the day
Something you're asking? Oh, what's up?
give what you was thinking. It's like perfect.
F of X would be what we call function notation.
Second period.
You're agreeing? Does that make sense? Yeah. It's a whole class.
I know I have to bring it, but I didn't.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So I know that you're not done, but from what I can tell in the discussions, you've gotten to the most important part, and we're going to have a discussion about this. And I'm going to show you how to use a calculator on some of these things, because guys, making a table all the way out to 30 days is a rough time, okay? That's 30 different entries in a table, especially if you're doing it for both options. So instead of that, let's look at how we can use a calculator more efficiently. So right here, all right? When you do stuff in these calculators, especially when we look at the lists and spreadsheets, it's going to be easier if you title your variables. So like, what is the independent variable that we have for both options? Yeah, it's X, but what does that mean in the context? Days, right? The days are the independent variables. That's what our X is, days. Okay, now I'm going to show you a little trick to help you make these things in the table, and it'll help you get to the next one. So what could be something that we put for columns B and C to represent the other two the options?
Pennies.
Okay, pennies, but again, do we want to compare pennies to dollars?
I mean,
Okay, but can we do dollars for both of them?
yeah.
As the title? They're not the same variable, right? So dollars and money maybe, Max, what are you saying? Dollars per day, but so you're going straight to the units. Personally, I want to separate and identify the two different options, right? So there's a lot of different things you could put, but I'm going to just go with OPT1 for option 1. and OPT2 for option 2. Okay.
Everything on my neck.
So from here, what's the first value for days that I should put in? 0. Okay, so make sure you're on, because you never find the file. So go to browse. That's right. Okay. So there you go. Alright, so here's a 0. Now, if you can identify what the rate of change is for the number of days, it's a very simple thing to write what's called a recursive formula. What's happening to the days every time? Did you hit enter yet? Alright, so what's the rate of change? What's happening to the number of days every time? So what's the mathematical operation there? It's adding by 1, right? So now I'm going to hit the equal sign that's on the calculator. It's on the left-hand side underneath control. And I'm going to click on that 0. Notice how it should have the dashed lines around it. Notice how it now says equals A1. I am now going, so you need to move your cursor up. You can actually either type A1 or you can move the cursor until the cursor is over that 1 and you click, oh, you have to hit equals first. Equals, and you click on the top cell, okay? So don't press anything else yet, but you should have typed equals here first, and then you move the cursor up to that cell, click on it. And notice it now says A1 because it's column A, row 1, just like Excel. Alright? Now you have to click back into the cell that you want to put. So what am I doing to A1? I'm adding 1. So it equals A1 plus 1. And so what should I get when I hit enter? 1.
I got 0.
I got 1.
Yeah, I take 1.
Do you trust me?
She's trying.
So hold on a second. So if you did not get that 1, follow back along with me. You're going to go into the cell where it says A2, hit equals, click on 0, and add 1. Now, here is why you want this option. Go back to A2, Anthony, and go to where your cursor is in the bottom right-hand corner. You should see a little plus symbol in the bottom right-hand corner when you move your cursor there. You're going to hold the D-pad down, and then you're going to the center of it down, and then you're going to drag that box down until you see the dashed line. It will. So you have to release the D-pad, the control pad. So then you hit enter. So once you have it dragged down, you see the dashed box, you have to hit enter, and it'll show that value. Yes, Tori?
How do we drag it down?
So you move into the corner, right? So do you see my cursor? I know it's hard to see.
Yeah.
So you're going to go into the bottom right-hand corner where the number is. You hold down the center of the directional pad, and then you just drag down. Well, you didn't put this.
Yeah, I saw that.
Guys, you have to make. So guys, listen closely on this. You have to see a thick white plus sign in the bottom right-hand corner. Once you do, you will hold down your directional pad and then drag down until you see boxes. Now I'll help further in a second. So JC, here's why you really want this. You don't have to go one at a time. Because what day do we want to go to? Okay, so I'm going to... Alright, there's 31. I want one less than that.
Mine keeps dragging down the same number.
Did you type in equals A1 plus 1? Because if you didn't type in equals A1 plus 1, it will do that.
And then press enter. That's why I did it first.
No, see how you did 0 plus 1?
Because I couldn't get it to work.
No, ma'am, you didn't follow directions. Equals, you click on this cell, go back inside of here and type plus 1. Now, it'll drag.
I got a circular definition right here.
It's just probably hard for you. Oh, it's because you have it clicked in. Drag and drop. All right, once you have the days done, use the patterns that you found within the tables on your paper, and let's get the other two options done as well. I just kept dragging. So, because you're just clicking, you didn't follow the directions of, okay, so you want to click inside, plus hold this down, and then drag.
Hold it down and drag.
Okay, so you're going
I'm so sorry, guys. You didn't give me
because you just keep clicking into the corner instead of once you see that, you can hold, and then drag. You have to hold. Oh, girl. You did not follow directions. Look, I said equals. You click on this cell, and then you're going to add 1 to that previous value. Now,
I had to click on the cell.
you click on it. Literally, you click on it.
Okay, so I gotta do it.
Now, once you have that formula set up, you hold here and drag.
So I'm thinking like, what's the thing we gotta put in first? We gotta put O1 plus 1.
No, A1 plus 1. You click on the previous cell. So once you have it here, hold and drag. You don't just click on the corner, you hold and drag. So make sure you get both options in there because it's going to be the same thing. You just have to pay attention to what the rate of change is. That's option 2. So which option are you working on right now? Option 1, right? Option 1, what's happening? Isn't it adding 60,000 every day? So figure that out. Right, I know, but you want it equals that one.
Yeah, watch it.
What's happening?
Plus 60,000.
Just put in the bottom right hand corner, hold, and drag.
Alright, so, okay, so you hit.
Talk to your group, I gotta go check on others. Did y'all get both options done?
Alright, but guys.
That's exactly what I said the whole time. You have to make sure that you click on the cell that you're trying to drag. Okay, highlight it, plus hold down and drag it down. Get options 1 and 2 in there. Let's go. Come on, options 1 and 2. We shouldn't be typing it every time. But the issue is it's not 0.1. I thought it was 1 penny, which is 0.0, right? See how it automatically updates too, which is nice when you fix it. Hold on, I gotta check on these groups. No, there's 11. Come on. We gotta work, let's go.
You don't like cross your legs and
What's up? You don't, hold on, you can't do that yet because you don't have the first values yet. Right? Look, you gotta have, for option 1, he has $0 to start. Then equals, you're taking that 0 and what's happening every day to that 0. You're adding 60,000. So he starts with $0 and then 60,000.
I don't.
I'm going to drop it. Let's get option 2 in there. Now be careful. Option 2 doesn't start with $0. Alright, so y'all got both options going? Yeah. Okay. So Say again. Remember, talk to your group. How much on option 2? How much does he start with?
There's a way.
Remember, that's why we drew the table to start, right? He started off with a penny, and then we need to pay attention.